It was awesome to see this pop star moon goddess with Philippa Soo. She nailed it. The music was insane. It's Kristen, and today we are talking about Netflix's new musical animated film, Over the Moon. With newcomer Cathy Ang, Philippa Soo, Ken Jeong, John Cho, Ruthie Ann Miles, Margaret Cho, and Sandra Oh, Over the Moon is about a girl named Fei Fei who builds and flies a rocket ship to meet the moon goddess Chang'e. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop down in the comments and let me know, are you excited for Over the Moon? And are you familiar with the Chang'e mythology? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So right away, the first thing that I really enjoyed about Over the Moon is that dive into the culture, the Chinese culture, and particularly this Chang'e mythology that I didn't know anything about and that I found so fascinating. We start out this film following this family that's talking about the Chang'e mythology, which is sort of the origins of this Mid-Autumn festival. The way that they set up the story, it's really beautiful, the animation is gorgeous, and you really get to see and meet this family. We get to see the mooncake store that they run, and you know, just like these little details that just felt like you were diving even further into the culture. And honestly, it made me want to learn more about the Mid-Autumn festival and maybe even celebrate something like that, or you know, immerse myself in the culture more. It felt very authentic and rooted in Chinese culture in a really beautiful way. It really is exciting to learn about these things, and I think it's so great to see this film portray that. You know, you get to see them eating these mooncakes that are really important to their family, and eating crab, and just celebrating this holiday with their loved ones, and those were some of my favorite aspects of this film. Our main character ends up losing her mother early on, and it's really wild to see the parallels with the real-life screenwriter of this project, Audrey Wells, who this is actually her last project. She had died of cancer in 2018. But to see those parallels, it just felt like there was an even more emotional level to this film. They tackle a lot of different topics, from the culture to these festivals to the idea of moving on after death, and you know, how difficult that can be. And I think that this is a really powerful story dealing with grief, especially for young people. What I also think is really cool about this story is the balance that they have of sort of that scientific side and that mythological side. Fei Fei, as she's getting older, you know, believes in science and kind of gets that from her dad, and you know, has this more scientific side where she's building a rocket to the moon, and that takes a lot of work and knowledge. But at the same time, it's sort of balanced with this like fact that Fei Fei is still a child and she still believes in the Chang'e myths that her mother taught her. And it's really cool to see that you can sort of believe in both. You can believe in science, you can believe in the mythology of your culture, and in that I think it brings up these questions towards the end of the film, is like, is this journey that Fei Fei went on real? Is it not? It's one of those things that it's kind of both. It kind of reminds you a little bit of the idea of The Wizard of Oz and how Dorothy goes on this wild adventure in Oz and comes home, but did she really go on that journey? And you could kind of give reasons yes and no for both, but I think in that story and in this story kind of lives in this gray area of like science and mythology and the magic of childhood and believing in something so wholeheartedly that it can come true. And we see Fei Fei go on this adventure into space initially so that she can prove to her father that Chang'e is real, prove that love is real, and remind her father not to give up on their mother's memory. But when she gets to space, instead she ends up actually really helping Chang'e move on from her own struggles with grief, and realizing that just because someone's no longer here doesn't mean that they're forgotten. You can see how grief has changed Chang'e as well after losing her husband on Earth, and you know, the fact that she's immortal and he's not. And I think that there was just this really powerful story of how to deal with grief, and also recognizing that there are people around you that love you and support you and will be there for you, and you can't get caught up in this pain. You have to find a way to move on, and not move on where you forget the person, but move on where you honor that person and are able to continue living a positive, happy life. And I think that we really get to see our characters go on that journey throughout the film. Another big highlight was the music. I think that they really tackled so many different types of sounds and aesthetics. It did have that, you know, Disney quality to it. The director of this project, Glen Keane, is a Disney legend. He's worked on so many iconic Disney projects, so it makes sense that you kind of get that Disney feel in this project as well, which is interesting because it's sort of like Netflix is diving into that. It made me think of that, especially when you see how, you know, with Julie and the Phantoms, that was a Kenny Ortega project, that really had a Disney Channel channel vibe to it as well. And now this project, it seems like, Netflix is trying to find their sort of Disney magic in a way, but their own version of it, by tapping these creatives who have made such iconic Disney properties. But going back to the music, the music was beautiful. You have some of those classic songs. There was also a lot of really fun EDM, sort of K-pop sounding songs, which I really enjoyed, especially when it comes to Philippa Soo as Chang'e, the moon goddess. Honestly, she was like a pop star moon goddess, which was so cool to see, and her costumes and everything. You really felt like you were getting sort of like a pop star, maybe even a little bit of a K-pop vibe during those sections of the film. Now, I will say, while I love the animation and the way that they tackled grief and the way they tackled the music and the way that they dove into the culture around this film, there were a couple of things that didn't fully work for me. I felt like when we got into space, that's sort of where they lost me a little bit. They started adding all of these characters like Gobi that felt like they were actually taking away from some of the development of other characters. So, we're also introduced to this sort of brotherly character for Fei Fei named Chin, and, by the end of the film, they kind of have this stronger connection as a brother and sister, but I felt like we didn't actually see that happen in the film. Fei Fei spent more time with Gobi than she did with Chin, honestly, and I think that they were showing that, like, Fei Fei and Chin's past experiences together are what helped Fei Fei get through the situations that she was dealing with Gobi, but there just felt like a disconnect where, like, instead of introducing this goofy alien character, maybe it would have been more impactful to focus more on the brother type character Chin and building their relationship more and having him sort of fill in that place that Gobi would portray. Additionally, I felt like there was something missing in this film for me when it came to Fei Fei and her dad. I wish that they had like a moment at the end of the film where they could really connect as father and daughter and she could express how she was feeling. I felt like we were sort of missing that a little bit. But overall, I really enjoyed Over the Moon. I think that this definitely has potential to be an award-winning animated film. I think the music is beautiful, the animation is gorgeous. I think there's a really powerful message here. To me, though, the highlights of the film were really when we were focused on the more grounded aspects in China, focused on the culture and, experiencing their day-to-day life and what they're going through there, versus when we kind of went to the moon. I think that it was awesome to see this pop star moon goddess with Philippa Soo. She nailed it. The music was insane, but I personally preferred those more grounded moments versus those space elements. I think everyone will have the music for this film on repeat, from Rocket to the Moon to Ultra Luminary. I think that this is definitely a big win for Netflix, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this next. If you guys like this one, you can check out more of my Netflix reviews right over here, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya!